When people saw Kim Tui's maternity pictures, they were awed how beautiful and normal her pregnancy was looking. But when she went into labor and her doctors saw what was happening, they were left reeling in shock as Kim Tui stood before the photographer. She felt everything but beautiful. Her pregnancy so far had been no fairy tale but an ordeal that pushed the limits of her endurance. Still, she had booked a maternity photo shoot to try and turn that harrowing experience into a pleasant memory. However, she didn't know if she would be able to forget about the discomfort she was feeling from the very beginning. The journey had been marked by constant nausea, an unrelenting exhaustion that clung to her like a shadow, and an omnipresent fear that her body was on the verge of giving in. She had heard motherhood was a gift, but it seemed it came wrapped in the most daunting of challenges. At first, she dismissed the persistent symptoms as normal pregnancy struggles. It was her fourth pregnancy after all, and she had become somewhat accustomed to the discomfort. She believed that time and patience would be the remedy. However, as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, the debilitating morning sickness coupled with a constant feeling of lethargy never wanted. Kim couldn't remember a moment when she didn't feel as if her body was betraying her, but as the pregnancy progressed, she began to feel her baby kick and grow just like the other ones had done. She felt that this was the only confirmation she needed to keep going and have faith that all would be all right in the end, despite the advice of her doctors. Kim resisted the idea of getting an ultrasound. The fear of the potential harm caused by the radiation on her growing baby consumed her thoughts. Instead, she chose to endure the tormenting wait, hopeful that the symptoms would subside and her baby would come into this world safely. This, of course, made many of her family members quite upset. They were convinced that there was something unusual going on with his pregnancy, which was developing so differently from the previous ones. Still, she was trying to take the challenge in stride as she donned a flowing mocha gown and posed in front of the beautiful calm sea. She smiled with grace and beauty that concealed the underlying exhaustion and discomfort. She knew that regardless of the struggles she had been enduring, she would still want to make beautiful. What to message customer supports as they've tried to contact before and failed, and they need to come up with something easy enough that they wouldn't tip off the AI, but not something major that the AI will send drone attacks. Emily then decides to say the product was damaged and uses a fake word to confuse the AI. Then shortly after, they get a message telling them that a customer support representative will be sent to them tomorrow the next morning. Connor calls for a town meeting and reveals to people what they did with the drone, and about the customer support representative coming that day. Town council members are freaked out and thinks that this is a bad idea, but Connor argues that they might be the only human survivors and that they need to shut down the auto factory. If humanity can flourish again, the auto fac has been making the planet unlivable. And if this continues, all humans will die off. Connor explains their first option will be peace, but if that doesn't work, they will forcibly shut down the Ottawa after the meeting. Emily breaks off with her new boyfriend Avishai to go and have some fun time. Emily used to date Connor, so Avishai is kind of intimidated by him, but she assures him that she just wants to be with him. Ashi loves to read books, and he saved a lot of important books, and Emily tells him that he'll be one of the most important people to spread knowledge once they get their freedom. He then accidentally confesses that he's in love with her. But before she can respond, the customer support ship arrives, and a humanoid AI named Alice emerges from it. Connor and the preacher Perrine then talk to her in the town's church, and she reveals to them that she knew the word that they used in the customer complaint was fake, and that they just wanted to talk to her. She also reveals that she knows that all of the Autofax deliveries have been dumped by the people and not used at all, but when Connor asks her why, they still keep sending products. She responds by saying, it's the Autofax job to provide, and that they will continue to do that. Connor then confronts her about the pollution in the restricted area, but she tells them that it's needed for the Autofac to continue operating. Connor then argues that no one needs their service, so they should stop. But she tells him that they'll be better off if they just use the Autofac. Emily, who's listening to the conversation, sees the discussion is going nowhere. So she grabs a taser and uses it on Alice, which short-circuits and knocks her out. The team then grabs Alice and brings her back to the lab so that Emily can reprogram her. Emily connects Alice's brain to her computer, and what she finds out was something that she never expected. Alice is not a normal AI, and she's actually pretty advanced. And she's actually close to being a human, instead of an AI. Alice can think as a human, and even have fears and likes and dislikes. Emily has not encountered this kind of program before, so whatever she tries, she can't really reprogram Alice. She even opens Alice's brain, but she can't really figure out a way to get into her brain and manipulate it. Meanwhile, Connard was getting bombarded with questions from the other town's members, and they're all afraid that the autofac will send a killer drone if they don't release Alice. But Connor argues that this is the last chance that they have to be free, and reveals the plan. Emily, Connor, and the preacher have all agreed to reprogram Alice so she could let them into the autofac, and once they're in there they plan to destroy it by planting tactical nukes, and everyone thinks that this is a one-way ticket. But Connor was ready to do what was needed back in the lab. Emily dozes off at her computer, and she has another dream where she cuts her hand open, and she's then awakened by Connard, and she informs him about Alice's human-like brain. She tells him that she's installing a new program in her, but she has to wait until Alice wakes up to know if it worked. Alice then wakes up shortly after, and the new program doesn't seem to have worked, and she still knows who she is and what's happening to her. Emily then tells Connor and the preacher to leave the two alone. Alice tells Emily the autofac will come looking for her if she doesn't go back in time and asks to be released, and Emily, knowing that she doesn't have enough time, brings out the drone's chip and threats to delete all of Alice's code and replace it with the drone. Alice was very threatened by this and agrees.